Scenographic illusion is the method of transforming the world of drama, dance, opera, ballet, entertainment, and performance art into expressive metaphoric images conceptualized in dynamic space and time. The visual art of the theater and performance art shall emphasize the human theme as an open system of communication across cultures, breaking rigid barriers and superficial cultural conventions. This involves visual expressions as a way of conveying feeling, thoughts, and perceptions, given that the use of the symbols and visual images is more effective than mere words. The creation of expressive visual and dramatic environment, such as scenery, costumes, and properties, is generally considered to be a recent development to theater history. Yet, careful research has provided evidence that scenic, costume, and property art and design have been practiced in a symbolic and deliberate manner for a long time in history. This practice was not accidental even during ancient times. It is now evident that ancient scenic art and performance practices were the origin of theater scenic design and has a profound influence on classical and contemporary approaches to theater and scenic art. The purpose of imagery is to make the non-visual elements of the production more effective on stage. The scenographic process is a joint network of skills, historical understanding, sensual perceptions, understanding of dramatic action, and a willingness to probe all levels of the mind of oneself and of others. To be effective is to acquire the ability to observe and analyze. Reception of an image and perception of that same image may not always line up. Words can directly affect images, and theater shows this interaction. To develop their abilities, artists must have a natural curiosity about the objective world in general, and must have an intense need to know the facts concerning particular situations beyond the common perceptions of reality. An inquiring vision is also a skeptical vision. Scenographers must assemble many images in order to set the forces of the imagination into play, and a strong element of skepticism accompany any research of any kind. Imagination is the active combination of an ability to see the individual attitudes and the active employment of technical skills to serve the imaginative processes of the mind.
Prehistoric and ritual performances were carried out as part of a natural, universal human behavior and have been an important part of the prehistoric mankind freedom of expression. These performances have been expressed as a reflection to the actual experience or imagination of hunting scenes, live imitations, rituals, or storytelling. Primitive men and women have performed these activities outdoors and indoors, with carefully prepared and selected costumes, makeup, masks, and accessories appropriate to the nature of the occasion. Egyptian plastic arts and the pyramid text provided evidence of various drama and dance performances that took place before carefully selected locations. These performances were recorded in scripts and paintings of actual events such as ritual, dramatic, dance, and religious ceremonies. The performance locations were arranged for specific presentations with clearly defined scenic environments. Dramatic forms were performed in a carefully arranged space with visually expressive scenic atmospheres for such performances as Osiris' Passion, plays of the Abydos, the Hathor Dance, and the Triumph of Horus that was performed annually at Edfu as part of the Festival of Victory, 1300 BC. Some of these festivals included mime and masked farce performances with music and colorful scenery, costumes, makeup, masks, and properties expressing high spirit and creative imagination. The elements of theater had been developed in Greece through religious ceremonies and performances, as the one in Abydos in Egypt. Early Athenian theater architecture was seating large audiences in circular arrangements on hillsides. Greek tragedies and comedies required different local and the creation of stage scenic elements. Scenic changes were developed from the flat painted wooden frames to three-sided painted flats, connected together and rotated to reveal different scenes and called periaktoi. They used of the skene or flat and machange to change scenery and to raise or lower actors or objects and for special effects devices. They used wagons on wheels, ekaklima, to move actors from one scene to the other. Greek and Roman drama was performed before selected architectural backgrounds. The Greek has created the theater buildings to perform comedy and tragedy plays in popular theater festivals. They utilized scenic units, properties, and masks, and even developed simple theatrical stage machinery. The Romans built impressive, elaborate theater buildings in a semicircular shape, with arches and freestanding structures, and used the Greek scenic devices. They also added the use of curtains, painted backdrops, and the use of columns, sets of buildings, and trees to change scenic environments. The medieval drama was performed first inside, then outside cathedrals. The drama was developed further, and the performance was expanded to town squares, and a special structure, houses, was needed to represent different scenes. These houses functioned as scenic properties and were placed on a platform stage, such as heaven on one side and a hellmouth on the other side. During the Renaissance period, a growing interest in the classical drama was displayed outdoors and indoors in the court festivities. Throughout the 15th century in Italy, the tendency was to enlarge the perceptible size of the court stage space by the use of the perspective and decoration of two-sided walls and painted backdrop of houses on both sides of the stage. They also used and developed theatrical machinery and special effects such as fire displays and scenery with several wings on each side of the stage. In England, the scenery was used in the form of curtains at the back of the stage for Shakespeare's productions, and was later influenced by the Italians' work in stage and costume design, as well as by the simplicity of their design methods. They also adopted the Italians' use of perspective and the use of stage wings and decorations. In the 17th century, the popularity of opera had a significant influence on the development of elaborate scenery and stage decor. The use of stage machinery and special effects has been developed and extensively used for opera productions. By the 18th century, the influence of the Italian art of scenery decoration and technique spread all over Europe, and the diagonal perspective scenery, as well as the elaborate Baroque theater decor, were first presented. In the middle of the 18th century, the French influence began to appear, introducing the style of neoclassicism in stage decoration. The art of stage scenery was influenced by the ancient sculpture's delicate style and the adoption of strong contrast of color, clear tones, and the meticulous realism in its composition. Art of the theater and public performances in the Far East, Middle East, Africa, and later America have been mostly presentations of storytelling, folkloric and traditional comic performances. Staging of these traditional performances have been in existence since ancient times in Egypt, China, Japan, India, and Persia as a reaction to the local cultural development. In the beginning of the 20th century, and due to the rise of Western influence in the arts, literature, and technology, Western influence has forced its way to have greater impact on the arts of theater and other multimedia entertainment in these regions of the world. During the 19th century, more distinctive Western quality of arts and techniques have been combined together with the local traditional arrangements and become a factor in theatrical presentations in these regions. The first half of the 19th century in England, this method of architectural scenery and the style of neoclassicism in stage decoration was replaced by the new romantic landscaping background and various special effects, such as transparent and cutout scenery, moonlight, and fire. All have contributed to the enhancement of the stage visual effect. The artificial painted scenery, the picture-like effect of the landscape painted drops, and the furniture painted on canvas lost their popularity and were replaced by realistic scenery, such as box sets with solid walls and ceilings, real furniture, and realistic properties. The principles of the naturalism style in stage production were enforced, and the scenery and properties were used to enforce the mood of the play by the exact depiction of life on the stage. Naturalism and its descriptive scenery returned in force in 1897 in Russia, guided by Stanislavski, and his main objective of reproducing actual conditions of life on stage. Naturalism and the naturalist trend was soon opposed by the symbolist, the modern school, who approached drama in a more artistic and creative way. They believed that the theater artists should be allowed more freedom, fantasy, and imagination in their work. Scenery became more symbolic and imaginative. Attention was given to the creation of more harmonious visual elements of the play, and the artificial painted backdrops were largely discarded. In 1899, Adolf Appia expressed his ideas of simplicity and the use of dramatic lighting to aid in identifying the character's space, mood, and movements. He used lighting and special effects to emphasize the solidity of the human form. In the 20th century, Gordon Craig presented his scenic approach by creating a completely unrealistic stage picture with large screens and a few movable scenic units to create artistic unity in presentation with particular attention to the mood of the play. This was achieved through the imaginative application of simultaneous points of focus, movable and permanent settings, stairs, and ramps. Robert Edmund Johns and Norman Bell Geddes were among the artists who assumed an active role in the development of an expressionist style in their stage design work in America. During 1872 to 1929, scenery painting had reached a distinguished level in the Russian ballet under the artistic mastery of Leon Bacchus, Alexandre Benoit, and Picasso. However, at this point, the progressive development of stage scenery had also contributed to the decline of painted scenery and drops. After World War I, an active German movement towards expressionism in theater was an active force with its objective of making stage design an active element of the production and its emphasis on the simplification and expressiveness of stage scenery in presenting the mood of the play. Charles Dulin in France, Alexander Taroff, and Vsevolod Meyerhold in Russia were separately instrumental in the birth of constructivism in stage design. They introduced scenic elements of scaffolding with various levels of acting areas composed in a symbolic manner with more of an industrial feel and less cosmetic decoration. After World War II, theater began to move toward a new non-realistic and non-traditional theatrical production, and this movement in scenic design was led by artists in England, France, America, Germany, Russia, Poland, and Czechoslovakia, as well as other designers all over the world. The scenographer is a creative artist, scholar, and craftsman who should have knowledge and experience in both the world of visual art, dramatic art, and all aspects of the fine and applied arts. The scenographer's approach to the design of a production starts with the reading of the text, researches the dramatic structure and objective of the drama, conducts dramatic analysis of the play's dramatic actions and characters, researches of and transforms the directorial concept into expressive visual images and practical forms through the design process of drawing, painting, modeling, multimedia, collage, plans, and elevations. A scenographer must see with both special intensity and with special purpose. To be able to distill the obvious surfaces of the world that is dramatically important, we must seek out hidden factors by less direct means and more intense searches, constantly to force the mind to change its point of view to look beyond the surface of reality. The designer's research includes the collaboration with the director and takes into consideration the theater space, the actor, actions, rhythm, time, period, place, and style, mood, technical and practical requirements. In addition, consideration of the production budget, available labor, deadlines, and professional standards of the producing organization are essential to the success of the production. The early design research sketches and plans are often rough, and in consultations with the director, they are developed with more precise and final-scaled plans, colored drawings, and models. The scenographic space must be indispensable and interactively linked to the actors and actions. This compositional and active environment is significant to the establishment of the mood to achieve maximum expressive and dramatic impact. The performer moves through this environment, a world of created dramatic environment that is composed of shapes, images, light, shadow, and colors to create the illusion of a dynamic space. The performer plays within an expressively composed, indispensable dramatic space. The performer's presence and interaction with scenic elements gives life and energy to the other performers and in the process creating a lively action that substantiates the space and achieves the goals of the dramatic performance. While the principles of scenic design are essentially unchanging, the technology and its application is rapidly ever-changing. Since multimedia is a combination of art and science, it is also a convergence of several art and technologies such as video, photography, painting, collage, projection and computer-generated imaging, audio, virtual reality, and special effects. Scenic designers have been investigating, experimenting, and producing theatrical productions with many of these multimedia forms and the application of existing and new materials, equipments, and many other factors that go into the making of quality interactive visual and dramatic concepts suitable for theatrical productions. Darkness covers a space in undefined amounts that cover a few feet or countless miles. A beacon of light reveals a stage, and the magical life of the drama then begins, the life of a dramatic production. The first theatrical experience an audience member has is with the production stage scenic environment. This environment or scenic design should not be a lifeless architectural skeleton, nor meaningless abstract or decorative environment, but an interactive design that translates the production's dramatic action and music into a dynamic and expressive space. One artist, the scenic designer in collaboration with the play director, implements the process of developing the visual concept to manipulate the audience's emotion. Scenic design is a unique art form in which knowledge, craftsmanship, and highly focused intellectual and creative abilities are harmoniously put together to create the appropriate dramatic illusion for a play. Scene design is a composite of many art forms, where the designer combines the knowledge and skills of theater historian, director, playwright, actor, engineer, painter, sculptor, illustrator, architect, technologist, interior decorator, lighting, multimedia, costume visionary, as well as organizational and business manager. Scenic designers are not limited to a single method or style of presentation to achieve the required mood and objective of the play. Although the designer as well as the production director are required to preserve the integrity of the text, the dramatic structure and the playwright intentions of the play, the designer's collaboration with the production director in his or her research, artistic choices, concept, and visual interpretation influence the staging of the production. Modern art and the technique of scenic design has gone through a process of continuous development and changes from scenic design to a more comprehensive art form of scenographic art and technology. This scenographic art form is created by designers and dramatists representing conceptual, visual, and dramatic interpretation of plays, musicals, dance, and opera productions. The artistic competency and collaboration of the playwright, director, designer, composer, producer, choreographer, performer, and technologist, as well as the organizational standard, budget, type, and physical characteristics of the theater, all determine the value of the artistic vision and quality of the production. The designer's research and artistic contribution starts early in the development of the production concept, well before the beginning of the rehearsals and to the opening night. The main objective of the designer, director, actor, and all the artists and technologists of the theater is to effectively present a play production before an audience. Scenery is one essential element of the production. It must serve its purpose to enhance and promote all elements of the production and is one of the most effective visual and psychological tools used to convey the desired meaning and feeling of the drama to the audience. Most of the time, the scenery will be felt before it's seen. Although scenic design makes use of many arts, it makes use of these arts in a well-ordered manner. Its essential characteristic is to continually interact with the performers in dynamic actions and to provide the audience with a sense of excitement and anticipation of what is about to happen on stage. The scenic designer's goal is to be conceptually coherent with all the elements of the theater, such as text, directing, acting, dancing, painting, sculpture, music, costuming, makeup, lighting, and to provide the appropriate expressive and effective dramatic impact. Contemporary scenic design is an art form created by designers representing a conceptual, visual, and dramatic interpretation of plays, musicals, dance, ballet, opera, and entertainment productions. The art of modern scenic design has gone through a process of continuous development and changes, from a simpler decorative art to a more complex, expressive, and interactive art form of scenography. This metaphorical visual art form is the art of scenography, and its main objective is the transformation of the world of drama into expressive metaphoric images conceptualized in a dynamic space and time. Scenographic art should neither be a background for the play, a lifeless decorative rendering of architectural elements, or an arrangement of natural environments, nor meaningless abstract images in space. It should provide metaphorical life to the performance and evoke the audience's imagination into unlimited dramatic possibilities. The artistic collaboration of the playwrights, directors, producers, designers, composers, choreographers, performers, technicians, service personnel, as well as the organizational standard, budget, physical limitations of the theater, all determine the substance and value of the artistic vision and quality of the production. The designer/scenographer is a creative artist, and his or her decision regarding dramatic concept and visual interpretation of space and design have a profound effect on all the other elements of the production. The designer-scenographer's research and implementation of the dramatic action in expressive, dramatic, visual, and interactive environments must enforce the mood and support the actor and production's concept, as well as visually and psychologically manipulate the audience's emotions for specific dramatic impact.
The principles of communication are extremely important when working in the theater. Scenographers must be constantly aware of hidden meanings behind the printed words of the script by looking for the clues that the playwright gives to express his thoughts. In addition, the scenographer must look for ways to communicate his thoughts about the printed text to his fellow artist. The metaphor is a great way to keep all involved focused on the particular concept that the director wants to portray in staging the play. A metaphor is an idea that functions as a symbol to express the concept that is going to be presented. Problems in communication will be present throughout the process of staging the play. It is only the awareness of the nature of communication that will help those involved solve any problems that may arise. Directors and scenographers must be in constant communication because it is possible to misunderstand the meaning of the other person daily. The success of the play is dependent upon the abilities of the director and scenographer to be clear about their intentions. Creative research involves both internal and external research techniques. Internal research deals with the items of information found within the script. These items are either explicitly stated or found from the investigation of the script. Internal research includes the directions of the author's intention and objectives. Factual descriptions and stage directions are part of the author's objective. The second part of internal research is evidence gained from the direct and indirect reference characters and actions in the play. The external research includes things that are not specifically stated in the script, but are important to it. For instance, the date of the text action, the period of the text, the geography, the artistic climate of the time, the religious climate, political climate, the author's commentary on his own time, and the style of the production as it was originally produced are all packaged in external research.
Stage design is an art form created by designers who create a conceptual, visual, and dramatic interpretation of plays, musicals, or dance.
To take all this and break it down and try to use the line, color, and form to get some expressive means, visual means for the show, I thought that maybe take away the walls of a house and try to recompose it and rearrange it in a dramatic way that can reflect the feeling of the play itself. That the whole set is composed of 3 units that rearrange it in a way that it will relate to realism, which we call simplified realism, but in a very dramatic, expressive way that can work for the drama and for the actions. The window here is the center focus of the play with the tree, which is a symbol of hope. The process of the sketches starts with a realistic arrangement of a poor house in the south. Then the house will not look isolated or look like it's a picture or it's a background for the play, but it's a house that has been affected and by the drama itself and be part of it. The walls are moving, they have a dynamic feeling of movement, they are collapsing. I always try to keep in mind when I research the characteristic of the drama that it has to be done for a specific reason. That specific reason is to help the actors to make the point. The design is visually appealing, but at the same time dynamic, reflective, and expressive to the drama to present the dramatic impact of the play visually. And when the audience see that design without acting, they know what is going to happen, or they know and realize what is the play all about. I always take the position that the set should not be just a background, or should overpower the drama or overpower the acting. All directors have different approach and different interpretation, but I never have any problem. I always offer them alternatives. Then they see that there is advantage of using some new ideas that it can be implemented for the show. After the design is being completed, then of course the designer try to put dimensions and more information about each unit of the design. Everything now that you have seen artistically on the sketches and the model has to be done in terms of precise measurement. This precise measurement has to relate to a floor plan, for the stage and the acting area. The arrangement for the seating here is 3/4. It's a thrust arrangement, and the audience setting on 3 different sizes of the stage. Scenically, it has 5 different scenes, but because of the restraints of the budget, we used only 1 set, and we try to utilize a multiple set that can work for the play without changing scenery. And the approach we used in the design was simplified realism with some fantastic theatrical ideas, and we try to utilize the Indian architectural elements since the play, as was adapted by the director, that it takes place in India, which was unique and provided a rich visual, resources for the show. The scenic elements was very light. It convey a pleasant feeling and comic relief through the visual elements and the action of the play. Some of the units were movable for arrangement of other scenes, but all the unit work for the entire production. Actors were doing that in a very graceful way during the run of the production. Then there was no interruption of changing the scenery from one scene to another. Color scheme was very light, off-white, and we have some platforms, and there was a practical fountain in the middle of the stage. All the units were in a pinkish white, off-white arrangement, which convey romance and light, bright feeling for the show. Some of the units were movable to change from scene to scene to create variation of scenery. Of course, the lighting played a major role in that show by emphasizing acting areas. All the backgrounds were greenery to convey more comfortable feeling, and the fountain was practical, and it was used for actual acting over the border of the fountain. It conveyed a very light, pleasant psychological effect for the audience, which was very important for this huge stage, and the actor can get lost within that space if there is not effective background and effective scenic elements that support the action of the play. For this show, the design approach was one of the most effective in terms of how to implement the requirements of the play visually. What I have done here is I try to take the architectural elements and I try to reduce it and rearrange it in a very theatrical and effective way that will address, the action, the locale, and the needs of the play in a simple way by using a silhouette of the architectural characteristic of that period in a way that can be used effectively to complement the action of the play. All these units is see-through. It has been built that you can see what's behind it, because there is certain scenes that the action takes place behind the scenic elements, but the audience has to listen and see what's going on. It's all the units has been done this way without losing their effective visual impact for the style and the period of the play. For Misanthrope, which was presented in a proscenium stage, the concept was entirely different. It was more expressionistic. It was done for nowadays. The stage is absolutely black, and the elements of design is more expressionistic with some abstract elements. It was more dynamic. Then we try to use some industrial elements. We try to utilize these elements of time, elements of scale, elements of metals, more industrial feeling and industrial and practical arrangement that work with the actors. Then the whole design was done in a kind of perspective that going off stage, leading the eye to the center focus, which was off stage, with the scale, which is the most important thing in that show, because actors was using the scale as an acting areas. And it was a kind of presentational show, very effective, very dramatic, very appealing. The set worked not only as a background, but worked as pieces of dynamic elements.
The dramatic concept, line, color, and form are the designer's communicating language, and it is the visual expressive language that can be understood and felt by all humanity. Therefore, the design must emphasize the human theme as well as open system of communication across cultures, breaking the barriers and hardline cultural rules. It should emphasize a humanistic way of seeing, feeling, and thinking. it is imperative that the design translates the direct impact of the dramatic action and rhythm into an expressive visual and interactive space design. It is critical that this space design should convey meaningful dramatic images that communicate with the spectator to enhance their theatrical experience beyond everyday's reality. The space design should not rely only on the language, but emphasize the expressive images that interact with the action, enabling the dramatic experience to cut across cultural boundary lines. Furthermore, reflecting human existence and diversity from the perspective of the human vulnerability and expanding possibilities. This involves the visual expression of ways of seeing, hearing, feeling, and thinking, since the use of symbols and images is more effective than mere words. This visual approach connects more rapidly with wider audiences and holds greater promise for influencing and enhancing people's appreciation and life. The scenographic space is manifested by actions and fixed by images, words, sounds, and movements to influence the intellectual space that the writer, director, designer, actor, and composer have striven to manipulate in the audience's emotion and affect their thoughts, fantasies, and dreams. Expressive scenographic art should emphasize an aesthetic environment that is not a copy of reality, but a compensation of place, time, and action. Each space on the stage and its boundaries is examined by the audience's eye in search of directions and variations. The eye links the elements of design with actors in characters as well as actions. Therefore, the stage scene is transformed into living space, which is recreated progressively during the performance. Successful transformation of scenographic reality has been the designer's goal, even though it is the artist's personal vision, but the emphasis is focused on the human theme and feeling, the social, moral, and ethical life, all as an honest depiction of humanity. This design approach intends to instill a global understanding and appreciation of scenographic art beyond local, regional, and national emphasis or interpretation. Thus grows people's fondness for humanness and their ability to feel, think, and learn through an expression of the visual and inner form of the drama, rather than through the outward shape of life as we know it. The designer's approach to the creative process of production varies in methods and presentation. Some designers break down the design into several scenes, acts, or parts, emphasizing specific scenic elements of the design in relation to actions, and put all the design elements into scale drawings, including front elevations, sections, and colored sketches. Some designers emphasize the entire artistic, visual, and dramatic approach in a comprehensive conceptual interpretation. This interpretation and creation of the new reality could be a total reflection and integration of all the elements of the production, including the development of chronological and psychological research and metaphoric visual communications. The designer's presentation employs the elements and principles of the visual art and multimedia in a unique dramatic manner to achieve the required mood of the drama with expressive, practical integration of all elements of the production. The employment of elements of design and principles of the visual art include the effective and expressive use of line to create shape and scale, create the appropriate rhythm, and simulate texture. While the principles of stage design are essentially the same, the technology and the application are rapidly ever-changing. Since multimedia is a combination of art and science, it is also a convergence of several technologies such as video, photography, painting, collage, projection imaging, computer imaging, audio, and special effects. Investigation and experimentation with many of these multimedia forms can complement the theatrical experience. Also, the application of traditional and new materials, digital media equipment, and many other factors can enhance the visual and dramatic impact of the theatrical performance. It is very essential that careful use of multimedia technology that goes into the making of quality interactive visual, dramatic concepts without distorting the essence and principles of theater. Many of these multimedia forms can be adapted, modified, reformed, and creatively integrated in space with actors, dialogue, and actions, and packaged into a new expressive form of dynamic design and drama in action. The main objective for the use of multimedia technology is not limited to the visual presentation of the storytelling, but is mainly to express a story doing the drama in action and to enhance the quality of the dramatic process, impact, and experience.
The scenographer of the mid-20th century has become less a reporter of the external appearance of environments and more a synthesizer of environmental qualities and, at times, a creator of new ones. The scenographer has been required more and more to create not only the places that were or could be found outside the theater, but also places that could never exist anywhere but in a theater. Should the scenographer always take the playwright's written directions at face value, or should he be free to interpret them? The scenographer is an interpretive artist, whose product depends largely on how successful he is in digging out meanings and information the playwright has hidden in his text, either consciously or subconsciously.
Until recently, the general attitude about scenic art was it should be decorative and not functional. The actor was seen against it and not working with it. Now, complex and expressive multifunctional structures force actors to relate to their environment. The designer needs to manipulate the stage in relation to space with the director and actor to make sure movements and restrictions coincide with the objective to the scene to establish the appropriate environments required by play. The space on the stage is without limitations. It moves through time and life of the drama. No definitive guideline can be determined for how a design should be built. Each production will need space manipulated for purposes to best suit the needs of the play. The major change now is that the scenographer is not a creator of superficial, decorative, scenic pictures, and more an artist deeply involved with the interpretation of the drama, with the characters and performers, who must live in this world created by the playwright. The art and craft of scenic design should break free from entertainment and move to involve the minds and feelings of the audience. Essentially, what is new is the conception of the scenic environment is not as static or fixed, a set confined, but an image or series of images that is in a constant state of action.
The scenographer should be another set of eyes for the director. She needs to help work with all of the other designers to create a total look for the production. The director must make the scenographer a main part of his vision. They work in tandem to create the production with, of course, the director having the final say. Most of the scenographer's work will be visual images based on the real space of our lives, but translated into the scenographic space of the stage. They will need to skim down real life but allow for movement, as that takes up a lot of space. There is never any empty space on a stage, just unoccupied space which may be used in another scene. This is done by considering the floor pattern and levels, objects directly used in the action, barriers that will restrict the action, and scenic elements that will have an effect on the audience. They also need to consider how the lighting will affect the scene.